Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
All right, welcome back to the Donut Shop. I am here with a former police officer and a current sheriff's deputy / police officer, also running a training company as well. I have Rick Sessions and Zack Scott, both originally from the South Florida area, and now running a training company. So we'll talk a little bit today about, what you guys have done in your career that's led you up to the point where, now you guys are, going around the country with a training company and teaching law enforcement officers the things that you've learned within your career and then the things that they should know throughout their career, right? So
sure.
Welcome to the Donut Shop. Thanks for coming on. And here we are. So how's it going, guys?
First of all, thanks for having us. I think it's pretty cool when you see people that are in this business. There's so many people that just live, eat, breathe, burp this business. To see somebody else who has some outside hobbies and interests like what you're doing to kind of balance is pretty cool. So congratulations on you for even putting this together. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Law enforcement as a business is what he's talking about, the business of police work. I've said it many times probably on here is I'm a serial hobbyist. I've always been a little ridiculous with my hobbies. People that watch like my live streams that are in my office, you can see I got a Star Wars helmet. I've got full Star Wars costumes that are movie quality. I'm a member of the 501st Legion. I have to do my census or else they're going to kick me out. But 501st Legion's a costume group. It's worldwide. It's probably got 18 to 20,000 members worldwide now.
Really?
And go to special events, Star Wars comic convention type stuff, but hospitals, cancer wings. Like on my birthday one year, I went down to the UM Cancer Center because they had an event where they had requested us, and I was like, this is something I want to do on my birthday. Like, nice. I'm going to do a bit of a, charity give back, a little fulfillment for me, but, entertain some people that are going through some tough times in their life. So that was one of my many hobbies that I've had. And I always told people that I did it to bring myself to a galaxy far, far away from here where I'm working, the trials and the real life of law enforcement that we see that we have to balance and deal with, because as you alluded to, if you live, eat, breathe, shit, fart, law enforcement, it's going to weigh on you even more. And
it's a true statement.
So, and now with mental health and all the talk about mental health stuff and owning up to it, it's things that, we all got to worry about. So, so I'm going to go to you, Rick, first, because I've known of you. I mean, I think we've passed or we've come in contact in the past in my career. But you're a famed homicide detective from a local agency in Broward County that homicide is not a stranger to. Major cases, big crazy stuff in the city of Lauderhill. What got you into law enforcement, and kind of like what was your career trajectory as you went through?
Sure. So an interesting question.
It's a full podcast in itself, right?
I was one of the guys. I was very, very lucky in life, to be perfectly honest with you, because I knew what I wanted to do at a very young age. I was born in November, and I was, it's kind of hard to tell in this podcast, but I'm not a small guy.
He helped me hang the flag on the TV up there on the main shot.
So, I'm 6'5", 280 pounds, and I was always a big kid. Mm-hmm. And when I was very young, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to kindergarten with a lot of my other friends, because to do that, you had to turn 5 years old before whatever the cutoff was, which is like September 30th or whatever. Yeah. So I had to wait a whole nother year. So when I went into kindergarten, right afterwards, I turned 6. So I was pretty much like a year older than most of my kids all the way through schooling. And I learned at a very young age that I just had zero patience for bullies. Yeah. I just did not like, and for anybody who's got kids or anybody who's grown up, you know what I'm talking about. Kids can be cruel. Kids can be just brutal to other kids. Yeah. And it just really bothered me when certain kids would pick on other kids, and those kids couldn't defend themselves or fight back, or they were, let's say, kids that were a little challenged or maybe weren't popular, that type of thing. So at a very young age, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, I found myself interjecting myself into their world and standing up for them and just telling like little other 6 and 7 year, listen, leave little Johnny or leave little Tiffany alone. If not, things are going to happen after school today.
Yeah.
And so I've always kind of had that protective mindset from a super young age. And as I grew older, I knew the two things I wanted to do was I wanted to get into the military and I wanted to get into police work. Mm-hmm. I knew that very young. And that's what I did. So I joined the United States Coast Guard. I did 4 years of active duty. I did 4 years in the reserves. And then in my last year of active duty, believe it or not, I know it's hard to know now in 2025 with the way law enforcement is perceived by a lot of the general public. But there was a time that law enforcement was the most popular profession on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s. I mean, everybody wanted to become a cop. Law and Order had just come out. Miami Vice.
Miami Vice is a shining star.
Yeah, the show Cops.
Jerry Worms, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, all these police shows were coming out in the late 80s and early 90s, and it was super popular. So when I wanted to come in the business, police agencies back in those days, they wouldn't even give you an application to apply. You want to come work for us? You put yourself through the police academy. You pay your own way, do all that stuff. And then once you're, finished, then come to us and we'll give you an application.
Yeah.
And they had the ability to negotiate from a position of strength because they knew supply and demand, so many people wanted to do it. And so my last year of active duty, I went to the part-time police academy in Bradenton, Florida, over Manatee County on the West Coast, because I was stationed at Station Sand Key, which is Clearwater Beach.
Okay.
And it was Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then every other Saturday from 8 to 5 for like 8.5 months.
Wow.
Not fun, but if you wanted to become a cop back in the late 80s and early 90s, that's what you had to do, is put your own self through the academy. Pretty much most agencies were like that. So that's what I did. I finished my time in the military. I wound up retiring ultimately from the Lauderhill Police Department at the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. I had an opportunity to come over to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and that's where I did my second career. I did another almost 11 years there, and then I retired full-time about 2 years ago.
Yeah, from like a full-time law enforcement position.
Correct. And now I, just travel around and teach full-time. But I mean, I started doing the teaching thing almost 20 years ago and was doing it on a part-time basis.
Right. You used to teach at the academy. You used to do like the death and injury investigations class. Yeah.
Did the injury and death investigations, homicide investigations, officer-involved shootings, and all that type of stuff, during the course of my career. So I kind of knew that was what I enjoyed doing, was trying to let other people learn from mistakes that I've made so they don't have to make the same mistakes themselves.
Perfect.
And so yeah, once I retired full time, I reached out to people that were just superstars in the business and that I had a lot of respect for. One of them, obviously, my partner Zack here, and everybody who I reached out to and said, would you be willing to help me and go on this journey with me to help out the next generation? Brave warriors doing this. Everybody said yes. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by just superstars. And that's what we're doing now, is we got a total of 12 different advanced and specialized training classes.
Let's not get too crazy. You're getting ahead of us. Like, don't get ahead of us, sir. Like these guys are both homicide investigators, and I'm sitting over here, a bunch of nothing. And I'm going to be doing the interview today, sir. So just you slow down.
Tough adjustment.
I asked you about history, and you're talking close history, recent history. Let's go with that. All right. So moving on, let's talk to Zack a little bit and kind of establish him and where you come from and like kind of what you're doing here.
Yeah. So I grew up actually in North Florida, Jacksonville area. And growing up, I had like this core group of guys who all lived in the same neighborhood, rode bikes together. That was, our big adventures. graduated from high school, went to college, really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I mean, I thought I had an idea, but it would start to change every couple of years. With college, of course, commiserate on, well, how many classes do I have to take and when are those classes offered? If it's morning classes, I'm no longer going to major in that. It's going to be the afternoon classes. So,
Did you also worry about math like I did?
oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Anything that was math avoidant, I was on board with that program. So,
That math and papers.
yeah,
A lot of communicating to find out who didn't make us write term papers.
Sure.
Was my sorry.
yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
anything that didn't have large scale projects, I was an all-star student. So,
I just
So-
needed to attend.
yeah. So I ended up going to school at UCF and
Hell yeah, that's all I'm talking about.
right.
So that's obviously like-minded.
That's
So
it.
we think about those sort of things, and we
Golden
found
Knights.
the
Yeah.
right trajectory.
and it was great. You know, I enjoyed the college experience, if not the college classes. But you know, I always had the same group of friends, and ironically, you know, out of the four of us, three of us became cops. But at the time, there was only one of us, so I was home for like a holiday, Christmas or something like that, and I did a ride along with him. Worked for the sheriff's office up there, and you know, I was just there for the ride, literally.
Yeah.
But you know, you go to one call and it's a kid who you know, has run away from home. The parents are looking for him. We find the kid. The kid doesn't want to go back home. And watching my buddy have this conversation and just seeing the relief on those parents' faces and things like that, I'm like, wow, that was kind of cool. And then nothing for hours. You know, we're in the car talking the redundant, same old arguments and sports arguments over and over again.
Yeah.
And then this car drives by with the back window broken out, and he's like, "We need to look into that."
Yeah.
Sure enough, car takes off. You know, now he is retired, so I can say maybe we followed at a higher rate of speed than necessary with me, a civilian, in the car. But
Especially that.
yeah, but that adrenaline dump from that, and then of course everybody bails out, and he's like, "You will stay at the car," and that's it, and he leaves me there. Well, one of the guys who runs from the car doubles back and comes right back towards the car. I am armed with a flashlight. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I just turn it on and yell, and my voice cracks the whole time. And it was probably something along the lines of stop running and get down on the ground, which probably sounded like stop ground and get running, you know,
Yeah.
because I was completely freaked out. And the guy did it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had such an extreme perspective on life from the beginning of the shift to the end of the shift, I was hooked. And at that point, I started looking into how do I get into that industry? How do I get into that world? And like Rick was saying, it was the same thing. In North Florida, there was no paid. You went through the academy, and then it was like almost like the NFL. You know, then they would draft. They would say, you know, which agency is going to recruit which people depending on how well they did in the academy. Another buddy of mine who was trying to get into police work was in the reserves up there, was recruited by sheriff's office down here in Florida. Hey, you're already certified. You know, we'll start you off at a higher step rate. You know, we'll do your processing in 2 days. You know, what do you think? And being a good friend, he's like, yeah, I'm interested. He goes, but I have another buddy who's not certified. Do you guys do that? And they're like, well, we do a couple. Have him come with you. So we road trip down here. He ended up not going with the sheriff's office, and I ended up going with the sheriff's office. He went to a municipal department down here in South Florida as well. And it all worked out, and that started the whole, you know, big crazy trip that it's been. But it's one of those things in life that they talk about. You know when you're where you're supposed to be, and that's what it was for me. And over the years, the teaching thing has just become something that I think everybody here has already said. It's just you look at the people coming in, and you're like, man, I have made some real bonehead moves. How can I save someone else that aggravation or that obstacle, and at the same time benefit everybody? And I think that ground floor, that foundation you get, whether it's in training, you know, at the academy level or your continued education, I think is your best chance to do that. So, and that's why I'm doing this today.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough to be part of the team that Rick and I have. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I find that like, as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking about it, and it's like, when people are at different stages of your career, when you're in the academy, you're focused on passing your tests, passing your PT stuff, and not looking like a complete buffoon to get fired while you're in the academy. So your mind is in a different frame. Then you've got your first couple of years where you're getting exposed to some of this stuff going, wow, that academy stuff, I don't know why I was so nervous or why I was scared or why I was, worried. So you've got a little bit, so you almost have to like receive training sometimes multiple times to like actually receive it and understand it and have it click, or sometimes have different people explain it to you in different ways. And I find that so with me, with the way sometimes that I teach people when I'm teaching, is that I might break it down a little differently than the last person that kind of explained it to them. And then it kind of helps them click. And so, you guys have a broad experience that you're bringing in to your training company. So that's pretty cool. But let's stay on the past. Okay, I know you're itching. I know you're itching to talk about the present. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Yo, what's up, guys? I want to do a follow up. I used to run an ad or commercial for my friends at HPTRT, Human Performance, talking about like testosterone therapy or, all that kind of stuff. I finally I've been using it. I've been, a member of the program for over 6 months now. I got my second round of labs, and I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. When I first was tested, I was at 330. I'm a 43-year-old man, and my test was at 330. I didn't even go through the injections. I'm going through a couple different types of prescription pills that they have to help me out. All legal, all on the up and up. But after this 6 months, my test has gone up to 910. As somebody who works out 3 to 4 times a week, wants to stay young, wants to stay healthy with all this stuff. It's helped with all kinds of stuff, like my focus, continuing to give me like the best sleep that I've ever gotten. I've enjoyed it. So go over to hp-trt.com and check it out. You can bring, if you've had lab work within the last 6 months, you can bring your own lab work and they'll start you up. If you haven't, then you pay for the lab work through them. Or you can just go to your own doctor and do your lab work through your normal insurance, which I'm sure has a zero copay, if anything. And use the code DSP20, and that'll get you 20% off forever, as long as you're a member, as long as you use Human Performance. So it's a great program, good people over there. So go ahead and get it done. And if you've been thinking about it, or if you've looked at recent tests in your testosterone and you want a boost of that kind of stuff, get into it, because you can also get the testosterone through them as well as peptides and other things. So DSP20 will get you 20% off. Good luck. What's in the cup? Guys, what's in my cup? Blackout Coffee Company. We joined up with them. I've been drinking it and I enjoy it, and I think you may enjoy it as well. So you can go over to our website and click the link, or you can just go to their website, blackoutcoffee.com, and use our coupon code to get 10% off. The code is DSP10. So go over, check it out. All right, we're back, and a lot of talk on the break, but let's, I want to hear some stories. So I'm pretty sure you came prepared. You sent me a whole text of things to ask, and one of those things is stories. So I'm going to assume you're prepared with some sort of a grotesque, horrible, not safe for work story. So what do you got? Something just some stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some stuff that has brought you into, these are some things that I need to train people on, because they may never see it. And when they do see it, they need to have been introduced to it in an idea.
You wanna go first, Zach?
Oh, wow. I'm sitting there going, good.
He was
I
leaning
got time
back.
to think.
He was popping popcorn.
Yeah. I mean, I've been, whether you look at it as fortunate or unfortunate, I've been in a position to have had some investigations that definitely have a, Florida man vibe, if you will.
Yeah.
And I worked in our homicide unit for a while, and then our agency said they wanted to start a full-time cold case homicide unit. And we had had different variations of this over the history of our agency, and it just doesn't ever seem to last or survive budget cuts or whatever reason. And I will say that type of investigative work is very different than I was used to, but at the same time also has some of the most unique aspects because you're really, I mean, you're part archaeologist. I mean, you're having to go back in time and look at how things were done, and then how can I modernize or how can I leverage what I have now with what they did. And so we did have a case involving a guy who was a serial killer, and eventually determined that he had done a series of murders both in Broward and Dade County in the early 2000s. So the unique part of it is that this, I started police work in 2000, and I can remember when these cases were a media issue.
Right. Yeah.
It had the Florida man flair to it was he would murder women and he would put them in suitcases and then leave them on the side of the road. That's not something you forget.
Right.
And especially when you're like, I'm going to get into this world, and you're like, I'm going to find the suitcase guy. So 20 something years later, I'm working cold cases, and the investigators, and really I was just the last guy in line. They had done a tremendous job over the years, and were able to get a tentative ID on who the suspect was based on some DNA evidence and some advancements that had happened. And they connected 2 cases in Broward and 1 case in Miami-Dade. But the suspect had, after the Miami-Dade homicide, fled to Brazil. No extradition agreement. And we also didn't have anything beyond some DNA connection, but there wasn't enough to actively say this is definitely the guy on one of our homicides. It was just how many suitcase bodies do you have? There were some incidental DNA, but not enough where you could say 100% that's definitely our guy. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the biggest problem was we can't even say that this is for sure who this DNA belongs to because he ain't here. It's just the name that they circumstantially believed was him. So you look at investigators over the years who have traveled to Brazil to try to develop a case, try to develop evidence, but at the end of the day, even if they 100% build a solid case, you can't bring them back. So we're kind of picking up that torch, A, to connect all of our cases, but B, find this guy and figure out a way that we can. So you're talking about dealing with Interpol, you're talking about dealing with the Brazilian National Authority, you're talking about dealing with a lot of different entities that if you're a street cop or even if you're just a homicide cop at a police department, you think all this is beyond you, like that's
yeah, it's like diplomat work.
Yeah, that's yeah. I'm not doing international work, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to I have victims and I need to hold someone accountable. I need to hold the person who did it accountable, and it doesn't matter where they are in the country. That's my job. So you start learning about stuff that you never thought you'd ever have to know about with international law, and we were fortunate that there was a bizarre incident that happened in 2011 with some international suspects who committed a murder in Palm Beach. And they did the innovative approach where they arrested those suspects in Cuba, also a non-extraditable country, and they tried them for the murders in Cuba for an offense committed in the U.S. Again, you listen to that and you're like, how was that done? But it doesn't matter how it was done. It set the precedent. They were convicted in Cuba. They're serving time in a Cuban prison.
For a U.S. murder.
For a murder committed in the U.S.
Wow.
So we look at that and we say, well, any reason why we couldn't try that here? So now we're literally negotiating with the Brazilian national government saying, hey, look at what this other country did. Would you guys be open to this? And we're dealing obviously with our federal partners and with the Department of Justice and with the Department of State. And all of that together, you're dealing with a lot of different machines, a lot of different bureaucracies. And it can be frustrating at times,
Yeah.
but you just stay on it and you learn how to become the most annoying person on earth, which I specialize in. So, and then I'm going directly contacting, I'm using Google Translate to write emails in Portuguese to say, hey, how are we doing on this? What do you think? Have you guys got anything going? And we were fortunate enough that on a limited basis, they were willing to move forward. They believed, well, there was reports their suspect had died in a plane crash, but they firmly believed he had staged his own death. So now it's a new wrinkle. Now we got to prove he's alive and find him.
Yeah.
And then eventually we're to the point where we're trying to figure out how to write a warrant in another country to exhume a grave. So, it's moments like that where I stop and I go, wow, I mean, we're doing this. But at the end of the day, the key is that, never assume that you're taking too big of a swing on your case, because no one else is going to. If you don't take those steps and try, then no one else is going to do that. No one's going to serve your victim. Eventually, we were able to determine that he did die and he was buried in Brazil. But we were able to obtain DNA that linked all the cases together, and we could at least resolve them.
Yeah.
Disappointing, he died in a plane crash, so I can only hope he was really, really terrified before he died. But at the end of the day, even for those families after all these years, we were able to at least give them the story,
And so that they know that he's not out there doing it still.
Right.
Surviving and carrying that out and creating more victims.
Right.
That his trail of victims is over.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So I mean, I've like I said, fortunately or unfortunately, I've had a lot of great cases that all just had something about them. But that's one of those ones that definitely sticks with me, just because as a career, remembering when those cases started and to be able to be part of that resolution that many years later.
Yeah.
It used to be, as part of your academy training, you had to attend an autopsy at the ME's office. It was one of the things I was most scared of and anxious about. Like, I'm going to be the guy in the class that they talk about years from now who threw up at the morgue.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me stand next to where the sinks are, so when it happens, I'm right there. And I survived, but I can remember being in there going, okay, well, this isn't so bad. And then hearing them say, okay, we're going to bring in the girl that's in a suitcase, so we need you guys to go out. And so I was there for that, and to go back 20 years later and talk to her daughter and her ex-husband and say, hey, look, I know it's not the best answer, but here's what we were able to find out. So it was, to have a full circle moment like that just kind of stuck with me.
Wow. Yeah. Super. Wow, that's really cool, and the cold case thing is always interesting because, like as you said at the beginning of that, you're looking back in the notes of what the detectives did before with their limitations in today's age. Obviously, we know things like DNA and all that; those are always the biggest things. Are you using AI at all in an assistance type fashion in some of this stuff, even if just to go through notes?
Right. It's something we're looking at. We've definitely done some research into it, surely because a lot of it is going to be going through mounds and mounds of records, So from that standpoint, I definitely see that as being a valuable tool for the future.
Yeah.
I am guilty of, as I think a lot of guys, later on in your career are, I'm very distrustful.
Skeptical, yes.
Yeah, I want to be the guy who reads every page of every case. I think when I can say, hey, what's a list of any vehicles that were brought up in this investigation? And if a program can come back and give me that list where I don't have to go through and write down every one, I certainly see that being a huge time saver. But at the same time, I think every investigator is a product of their past cases. So if I can remember a circumstance that came up or some way that we worked the evidence on one case in my past, I don't know that a program's always going to know that. Now, the inverse is also true. There's going to be things that I'm ignorant of that computer is going to be a lot more knowledgeable about, or at least have access to the information. So we are not actively using it, but it is something we're definitely exploring because of the amount of research that you have to do on these cases.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like you said, a tool, using it as a tool, I don't think AI is going to be used, or at least in our careers, to close a case.
Right.
It's not, we're not going to be able to present evidence that ChatGPT told me, Your Honor, and members of the jury, and please believe it. And this is factual. No, of course, but it's definitely a tool for that.
Yes.
Because of how everything is so time sensitive and the amount of work that we're getting thrown into our faces. I think we have to utilize AI as a time management tool to assist us in, expediting,
Right.
because everybody else today, I need it done yesterday.
Right.
You
Sure.
know, the sheriff wants it done yesterday. Your commander wants it done yesterday. The families want it done yesterday. So if I can safely do it without it sending me on the wrong tangent, because
Right.
that's also something we have to be afraid of, even when we're just asking it for a recipe and it tells us to put a different ingredient by accident because it doesn't know.
Right.
You know, it's an infant. Cool. Yeah, I mean, cold cases are definitely very cool. I've had the opportunity to talk about a few with a few people. Freddie Ponce from City of Miami was here, talked about, when you keep saying Brazil, talked about an awesome case that he worked even into his retirement on and ended up solving with the Brazilian National Police and stuff. Awesome talking to him and stuff. And I think I've got some hooks to some Miami-Dade cold case guys that I might be able to get on just to talk about that stuff. And it's always good for podcasting purposes to bring awareness to a case. If you guys are looking for leads, that kind of thing, if you're allowed to talk about it, that kind of thing. When you get to that point that you need media, podcasts are a cool way to get information out for just doing plugs. If any cold case investigators want to come on.
I think the unique thing that we have that I think most agencies across this country don't have is that having an actual full-time unit with 3 detectives literally doing nothing but cold cases. I mean, most law enforcement agencies, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the resources,
Correct.
they don't have the ability to do that. And just to kind of piggyback off of what Zack was talking about, because obviously he and I have known each other a long time and been in this world of homicide for a long time. I'll never forget when he first told me the story, talking about a full circle moment of, being in the police academy, going to the medical examiner's office. And at the time, for those people living in South Florida, they remember the early 2000 area where they had all these multiple murders of females getting murdered and put in suitcases and dumped on the side of the road. It was all over the media. For him to go to the medical examiner's office on that day of his police academy, and one day he just happened to be there, happened to be the day that victim is brought out, and they're going to do the autopsy. And then 20 plus years later, he's now working her murder and gets it solved and is able to go back to that family, at least with some answers and some hopeful closure and so forth, is such a really just a cool story and full circle moment that stars and planets aligned.
I mean, and it's the thing about law enforcement that, like, we are those people that are the ones that are, working to bring your family's murderer, your family's, attacker to justice. And that, even if it's not a cold case and it's just something that happened, 2 weeks ago, first 48, that kind of thing. And you're coming out and you're the one that's able to say, hey, I can't guarantee anything in trial, but this is our guy. I know that this is the guy, or this is the girl. This is the person that committed that crime. And we're, and then that you can, stuff that's been all over television in South Florida, probably even made it to the national news at that time.
Well, I can tell you, just for me, I knew pretty early in my career there were 2 things I had an interest in doing. I knew I wanted to get onto the SWAT team, and I knew I wanted to get into homicide. Those were the 2 areas where I know that it's the most pressure, high profile, all the lights are on, all the eyeballs are looking, and that's where, when it's go time, those are the 2 places where, quote unquote, best of the best are going to be going. And that's where I had an interest, because when I first went into investigations, just like everybody, you start off doing, property crimes and things like that. And I became very frustrated, to be honest, because you'd put all this effort and all this work into doing like a master clearance, and you arrest whatever, 4 or 5 people and you clear 20 cases, and they do a plea deal, and you know, they get a few years of probation or whatever, and they're out the next day
hitting cars again. Yeah.
You literally feel like you're trying to empty the ocean with a fork.
Yeah.
And it's just such a helpless, you feel like all your work is just for nothing almost. And so that's one of the reasons I want to get into homicide, where if I start working a case and I put handcuffs on you, I don't ever want to have to deal with you again. And I don't want you to ever have the ability to victimize another family again. Mm-hmm. So I was blessed. I was lucky. I got to spend the majority of my career doing the 2 things I really, really wanted to do and had a passion for. And that was being in homicide and being on the SWAT team. And I loved both of them.
You were able to juggle both of those, because I know for training purposes, you know, like, you know, in our detectives, they make a lot of the guys that come in from SWAT come off SWAT, because SWAT's, you know, hey, you need, especially nowadays, you can't miss trainings. You can't be on a call out, you know, and then to that point, you know, what about when you're needed to, when you guys are serving a warrant on SWATs, or I mean, on a homicide?
I eventually, because the SWAT team is a collateral duty, basically part-time whenever needed, work, so to speak. Whereas obviously my homicide world was full-time. So I eventually retired from the SWAT team and then just was doing homicide full-time. But you were asking about crazy cases. While I was listening to Zack talk, I'm looking back. I mean, there's a
Rolodex, I'm sure.
Good God. I mean, there's so many. But I think if I could just pick one that really stands out, because it had so many components that most cops will never, ever have to deal with, ever. We had a case where we had 2 cops with our own agency. They worked the midnight shift together. They were zone partners. And they had began to date. They were a couple for a short period of time, a few months. And ultimately, she broke up with him. And Justin, he was one of these guys who, if he broke up with the girl, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. But if the girl broke up with him, stand by, we're going to have some issues. Yeah. And I mean, he had some, from what I learned later, he had some drinking issues, and he had some, other things in his life that was contributing to some of his behavior and so forth. But the bottom line is, he wound up blowing up her phone, nonstop, trying to get back with her. Text messages, calls, what have you. And she just didn't want to be with him anymore. And ultimately, he wound up reaching out to her, and then I don't remember if she called or texted, I don't remember. It's been a lot of years, but ultimately conveyed the message that, listen, if you call me one more time, I'm going to notify internal affairs.
Yeah, this is coming back on work now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want you to call me anymore. I'm not interested in being with you anymore. As a couple, I'm done. So ultimately, he decided that was the day that she needed to die. And he obviously knew her schedule because they were obviously on the same shift. So she was working a detail, off-duty detail. She's in her mark unit, in her full uniform.
I do remember this case. I was sitting here going through my memories of a neighboring jurisdiction, and then people that I know that work there. And okay,
this was a crazy one.
Yeah.
So he is actually over at a friend's house. Obviously, this is all stuff I found out later when I was doing the investigation. But he was down in City Hollywood at a friend's house, I guess drinking some beers, whatever. And he decided that that's the day that she's going to die because, that was his solution.
Of all solutions that you could choose as a police officer. Good job.
He gets in his personal pickup truck. He starts driving northbound on 995. And as he's driving, he makes a phone call to his ex-girlfriend, who wound up being a professor at Nova University. And he called his cousin, who was a corrections deputy over on the west coast of Florida. So he's on a 3-way phone call with these people, telling them basically he's going to blow her head off. Today's the day she's going to die, so on and so forth. And of course, the two of them are trying to talk him out of it. Listen, it's not worth it. You'll find somebody else. Don't throw your life down the drain for the girl. You know, everything they can do to try to get him to just pump the brakes. And during this whole conversation, this three-way, he's just bawling, crying, all right? He gets off on Oakland Park Boulevard at 95. He starts headed westbound to Lauderhill because he knows exactly where she is. She's there doing her detail. She happened to be parked, and it was one of these details where it was a like a strip mall shopping center. It was kind of a visible deterrent detail where you just kind of, you know, drive around and, you know, that type of thing. So she happened to be parked. He pulls into the parking lot. She recognizes his truck. Obviously, she knows his vehicle. And as soon as she sees it, she's like, internally is like, oh God, like I don't want to talk to this guy. I want nothing to do with him. Well, ultimately, unbeknownst to her, he has his backup weapon literally sitting on his lap. And as he gets ready to pull into the parking lot, he tells the other two people he's on the three-way phone call with, there she is. I'm going to blow her head off. And he puts the phone down, like on the center console. So it's still a live phone call. They can hear everything. He pulls into the parking lot, and his plan was to basically go car to car with her, driver's side to driver's side, and just basically lift the gun up and put all 10 rounds, because he had the mini backup yet, so 9 in the clip and 1 in the chamber, and he was going to put all 10 rounds in her head. Well, fortunately for her, unfortunately for him, she didn't want to have any contact with him. So what she did is started to roll forward as he pulled up to basically avoid having a conversation with him. So instead of him just being able to pump all 10 rounds directly out his window, he now kind of had to turn around backwards and fire backwards. Yeah. He still put all 10 rounds in a very, pretty small area there. And one of the rounds went through the rear driver's side window. It hit the actual headrest. Mm-hmm. And if anybody here has ever done THI or knows anything about vehicles, in that headrest, there's like a piece of metal in there that's almost like a stabilizer. Well, the projectile hit that metal inside the headrest, and it reflected upwards, and it went into the actual rooftop of the car. Otherwise, it would have went right in the back of her head. Jeez. And then another round went through the rear passenger side door, went through her driver's side seat, and it made went through her uniform shirt, and then it wound up making a defect in her bulletproof vest. So it didn't touch her skin. It didn't go all the way through, but she got the bruising. She got the trauma. You could see where the bullet literally struck her vest. Jeez. So of course, as she's has a hail of bullets coming in her direction, she's obviously screaming on the radio. And of course, I don't know any of this stuff because I'm off. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, I had just sat down. There's a place down in Hollandale Beach that was brand new at the time, called Gulfstream. And they had a new Mexican restaurant. And I love Mexican food. Mm-hmm. And just sat down. I just got a menu. And I get a phone call from the assistant chief. And assistant chief says, "Hey, Rick, what are you doing?" "Hey, boss, I just sat down, just getting ready to grab some dinner. Listen, I need you to come in." "Okay, what's going on?" "I can't talk about it, but just get in here as quick as you can." Okay. So I wound up calling up my captain, my immediate boss at the time. "Hey, Cap, what's going on?" "I can't talk about it. Just get in here as quick as you can." So then I called the road patrol sergeant. Yeah. Like, "Hey, what do you guys got going on?"
Well, I got to find the loose lips.
"I can't talk about it. Just get in here." Well, what I did not know at the time, the officer / suspect who did this, his father worked for Hollandale Beach Police Department, which is another agency within Broward County, who obviously had a police radio, because as soon as the officer, in his mind, murdered this girl, this fellow officer, he thought she was dead. His father called him because he heard about all the radio traffic and said, "Hey, listen."
Right, because to fill everybody in, and it's all in Broward County, so it's going to come over the air, officer shot at. So you're going to have pretty much an all call to alert other agencies.
The world is coming
on, that there's a suspect still at large. So everybody's coming. So yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
Which is also where you were sitting to eat dinner.
Yeah,
you
talk
know.
about full circle.
So you're riding the wave of officers running to the call as you're like, well, something's going on.
So I ultimately, as I'm coming down this main street, which goes right through the heart of our city, there are cops everywhere. I mean, all you see are blue lights flashing. All roads are shut down. It's insane. So I pull up and I try to find out like what's going on. Like, what do we have? And finally, the road patrol sergeant comes into my car and says, "Rick, this is what we've got. One of our police officers attempted to murder another one of our police officers today. They attempted to murder their zone partner."
Yeah.
I mean, let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
So as I'm working the case, obviously throughout the day, throughout the night, I have no idea. But this story wound up going like nationwide and world. Like, how often does a cop try to assassinate another cop? It was all like Good Morning America, the Today Show.
Yeah.
We had emails coming in from overseas, like, what's going on in Lauderhill that a cop tried to kill another cop? It was just an insane case.
I went to high school with that guy. Didn't know he was a cop until I saw his face on the news, and I was like, that guy became a cop? Are you serious? Like,
You went to high school with him?
Yeah.
Oh my
if
God.
I'm 100% a super white guy, kind of a gingy.
Yeah, the initials are KB.
I don't know his fucking real name. I don't remember.
But anyways,
Yeah. I'll look it up while you're typing.
It was one of those cases where, like I said, we were getting bombarded with stuff that people were just could not believe something like this happened. And then you add another part of it too, where, I mean, you never want to put handcuffs on one of your own people.
No.
But obviously I got a job to do. And that was,
I went to high school with him.
You did.
Yeah.
Yep. That's him.
Yeah.
That's him. So, I mean, I could tell stories for hours about crazy cases I've worked, but that
one's kind of crazy because you've got the state crime,
sure,
but then you've also got some IA, some internal affairs, some inside departmental problems. Even if you just can't seem to get that state case to stick for some reason, since he had two audible witnesses listening to his declaration basically on the phone, and then you had a victim who knew him. Wow. Like,
yeah, I didn't even tell you that part. So what happened is, as soon as he puts in his own mind all 10 rounds in her head, because he thinks she's dead.
Oh yeah. Where did he go? Like,
so what wound up happening was, as soon as he does the shooting, he picks his phone back up and starts talking to this. Now, keep in mind, he had been bawling, crying the whole drive up there. When he picks his phone up to talk to his ex-girlfriend and his cousin, and this is their testimony, he was like so calm. So like, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, she's dead. I just blew her head off. Like it's a typical conversation, no big deal. And ultimately what wound up happening was his father wound up calling him and saying, listen, she survived. Please do me a favor, turn yourself in. I don't want to see you get hurt. So he wound up at that point making multiple phone calls to several of his friends, which were fellow officers on the department, asking them to meet him and to bring a round, a bullet with them, because
he was out.
Correct.
He was dry.
He was dry. And allegedly he wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And so thankfully none of our cops went and met with him and brought him ammunition to carry out his suicide, thankfully. But what he did is he fled down to Davie, which is another municipality within Broward County that he was familiar with. And the reason he was familiar with it was there's a shopping plaza that was there, and there was a Publix in the shopping plaza, and he actually worked at that Publix as a teenager.
Yeah, I remember.
And so he was familiar with it.
Yeah.
And now, so keep in mind, he just in his mind blew this fellow officer's head off. He walked into a pizza place, and
Antonio's.
I wasn't going to say it, but
You can say it.
Shout out to Antonio.
It's not there anymore. I used to eat there in middle school. A friend of mine and I used to ride our bikes there every day and say, we're going to do this the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
We didn't do that, but that was middle school mentality. So yes,
so
this
he's
is literally right down the street from where I currently live, guys.
yeah. So I went in there, got a
Also
couple,
where a Waffle House murder happened.
which was another famous murder case here.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
the victims were put into the freezer, and
Yep.
I mean,
Crawled over to the Shell station to dial 911. Very crazy.
yeah, I could give you stories all day, but yeah, on that one, he went into this pizza place once again, like it was just a normal day, nothing going on. Ordered himself a couple slices, got something to drink,
Yeah.
and he's on the phone the whole time. And ultimately, what wound up happening was we got a hold of Davey and their SWAT team and stuff. They wound up going to the back of this shopping mall plaza, and they wound up emptying out the different businesses.
Yeah.
And it's all on YouTube. It's all on video. I'm sure people have seen it. But ultimately, they wound up taking him down and getting him in custody there in Davie. And then, of course, we brought him back to Lauderhill. And, yeah, that was a...
Any idea what he's doing? If he's
yes, I know exactly what it is. So
is he up in the center of the state?
he's in prison. What wound up happening, another interesting side note to this. So when I retired from Lauderhill and I went to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, ironically enough, my first day, I was going to be at my new assignment. I had to go to my boss and tell them, listen, I apologize. I know it's day one, but I'm not going to be available for you guys because I have to be in court, because that was his D-Day. And he had to make a decision as to whether he was going to accept the plea offer or whether we're picking a jury. We're going to trial right now. Mm. And ultimately, he decided to take the plea deal, which was 20 years. Mm. So he is... This happened in 2011, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's what the news article
said.
And
so he will get out scheduled to get out in 2031.
All right. So my podcast will be huge by then. So I should have professional security or whatever. So any trash that I might have laughed about him not being a police officer.
Yeah, I think he was in his late 20s. So he'll be basically...
He's 43 probably.
Yeah.
He's probably 43 right now. So because he was either a year ahead or behind me in high school, I think. So yeah, over here at Western High School.
Wow, that's a part of the story I did not know.
Yeah.
It's crazy how
I know
6 degrees of separation.
I still grocery shop at the Publix that he worked at, So
wow.
So
that was an insane one for sure. Going back to cold cases that Zack was talking about. The oldest one I ever had the pleasure of working on.
Because that's what that first day of work with Broward Sheriff's Office, that's where you went to work cold cases, or
no? When I went to the Broward Sheriff's Office that very first day, I was obviously under subpoena, had to be there, but we didn't know if he was going to accept his plea deal or whether we were going to pick a jury.
But your role with BSO, like what you had left to go, you weren't going to be a road patrol deputy in Oakland Park.
No. I had things already worked down in advance as to what my role was going to be at BSO and what they wanted me to do. Okay. I mean, because I had a great gig at Lauderhill. Yeah. I didn't have to retire. I mean, I was eligible to, but didn't have to. I loved, what I was doing there, but, you mentioned before about doing homicide and the SWAT team at the same time. Yeah. I mean, I had been going 150 miles an hour for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was ready to kind of slow down a little bit. And I had an opportunity that came up from relationships that I'd made through the years. And I decided that I was going to take advantage of the opportunity and just kind of slow down a little bit. And, so I went to the sheriff's office and, did almost another 11 years there and had an, awesome time, great time, learned a lot, worked with a lot of amazing people. And that's where I really, obviously Zack and I became much, much, much closer. I mean, Zack and I knew each other because we were both in the same world. And then when I went to BSO, obviously we became much, much, closer and we decided to, do what we did now with the business.
Cool. All right, cool. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Hey, what's up, guys? Want to talk to you about Tasty Gains. They're a sponsor of Counterculture Inc. We love them, been using them, and I enjoy it. It's a little gummy. It's got like 1 gram of creatine in there, so you take 3 a day, knock it out. It's making a difference, and it gives me a little bit of sweetness too during the day. I can keep them right in my backpack in my car at work, and they don't melt. You can see this is the mango pineapple. It's my favorite flavor. But check it out. Use code Counterculture to get 20% off on Tasty Gains. So check out Tasty Gains. They're great. So get your swole on. Yo, what's up, everybody? Want to let you know I have a new website format. Same website, donutshoppodcast.com. But this time I'm running it through Shopify. Make it much easier to purchase items because aside from the hats that I have up there, Donut Shop Podcast, PVC hats, the blue line snapback, laser mesh, nice and clean on the inside, comfy hats. I have some other swag, t-shirts, can koozies, just some other stuff that I put up there. I'm running the website through Shopify, and so it'll make it real easy for you guys to go on and purchase some stuff and support the show. So thanks for tuning in and following the show, and don't forget donutshoppodcast.com. Thanks. All right, we're back from break, and so, Zach, I understand that you were involved in the MSD. I kind of mentioned it before, but you were involved in the MSD investigation, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School here in Broward County. You know, you were involved in it to a point where, you know, you're managing all kinds of stuff and you have all kinds of eyes. You have the eyes of the world on it. What's something like that like for those of us that won't get to deal with that?
Sure. I mean, it's hard to say that there's anything you can compare it to because there's not. I mean, obviously any homicide you work is going to have attention. It's going to have people demanding answers, no question. When you have a case where you have 17 homicides, and truly, I mean, listen, everybody counts. Every victim is somebody to someone. But you have cases where you're like, okay, well, this guy was involved in a drug deal and it went bad and both guys shot each other. One guy died.
Yeah.
Man, that's a high risk that guy took. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. But when you look at kids whose only risk was they went to school, teachers, I went to go teach and help kids. You know, your victims matter, obviously. But when there's that many of them and there's that many families attached to them that you're trying to give answers to, it's hard to convey what that's like because I honestly had no idea that it was going to be like that. And the only thing I would tell people is that don't assume, actually, that's not even right. I'm just going to make the statement. You're going to have one. I mean, I don't know how many of them have to happen before everybody realizes it. Because I promise you, every time there's been one, the people working it have said, we never thought it would happen here. Every single one of them, including us.
Yeah.
We never thought we'd have one of these. We had the airport. We're never going to have another one of those.
Yeah.
We had this. You have to know that it's coming. Now's the time when you can, and you're breathing, and you're not running a million miles an hour. Make the plan. What are we going to do? Who's going to do what? How are we going to adapt if these things don't work? And I think that's where a lot of places get caught, ours included, flat-footed, because everyone wants to assume that it can't happen where they're at. Beyond that, I think you have to be honest about the effect that seeing all that will have on you and working that will have on you. Be honest with yourself that you are going to be affected. Maybe not that day, maybe not that week, but eventually there's going to probably be some things that bubble up. And don't be afraid to talk about it, you know, either amongst your team, your unit. Definitely, as much as we try to separate home and work, it's going to affect you 24/7. Yeah. It's dumb to say, I'm not going to talk about this when I'm at home. I'm not going to bring my work home with me. You will. How you do it is going to be up to you. You can do it when it becomes a symptom and your family has to deal with it. Or you can come to them and say, look, I'm having some issues. This is why. So at least they're part of it on the ground floor. And I think that, look, cops, we don't want to admit that we need the help, or we don't want to ask for it. We want to try to keep our lives separate. And I understand there's certain merit to that. But I think that over time, I hope it's been obvious to people that you can't.
Yeah.
You are the person you are, whether you're at home or you're at work. It's the same person. And if they're hurting, it's the same person. So I would say that you have to be more honest about what those type of incidents, and it doesn't have to be something on that scale, any of this, what that does to you, be honest about it. And then for our leaders, recognize that that's something that as leaders, we need to account for, and we need to take care of our people. Otherwise, how can we expect them to go into harm's way? How can we expect them to go into those environments if we're not there to say, we have your back, we will make sure that you're taken care of, we will give you the resources you need to get help, and not necessarily view it from the standpoint of how can this hurt us? How can this necessarily become something that splashes back on the agency? I understand that concern, but that shouldn't be the priority, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
So I would just those would be the two things I would put out to other agencies everywhere. Is that number one, it's going to happen. Don't kid yourself. And number two, just be prepared that the ripple effect down the road, and take care of your people.
And then also realize that it's not necessarily things like observing the scene and seeing that, like, that's a trauma in itself, but there's other traumas or other problems that are put on: pressures from the agency, pressures from supervisors, workloads, home life, sleep. There's all those kind of things that all happen because obviously everything you were working on got put on a back burner because of one of the most important cases of anybody's life. So all that stuff. And then you've got so much pressure from politics, from command staff and all that kind of stuff that pushes on you and weighs on you, and how you deal with it and what you are already probably dealing with from other cases. So it's not just gruesome scenes or macabre stuff that you see, which can be terrible in itself. It's the administrative, the paperwork, right. the then having to go to court, the stress and the nerves about trying to put somebody away,
right.
That compounds on you, and so it won't be that first 48, the first week, the first month. It's going to come up later.
Right.
And compound and stuff like that.
No, I mean,
pay attention to it.
It's like you're on some form of analogy. You're on a frozen lake, and it's not necessarily that big backpack that you're wearing that's going to make the ice break. It's, now we're going to add another ounce. We're going to add another ounce. We're going to add another ounce. And those things on their own look like nothing. They're innocuous. They're small things. Mm-hmm. But when you do compile all those little things, hey, the paperwork, hey, you're going to need to be deposed on this. Mm-hmm. Hey, we've got a hearing on this piece of evidence. All those little things. Hey, I go home and my kid's failing math. It's that last ounce that makes the ice break. That's now we're there. It's not necessarily the big thing that you think of up front. It's the combination of all of it, but understanding that when you go through something like this, that's where it starts. Yeah. And we have to address that ground floor first. If you don't have a strong foundation, you're not going to stand upright. It's just you're going to collapse. So
just like working out and being healthy that way, you gotta be healthy mentally with how you talk about it, especially with family. Like, I find that now I'm trying to talk more with my wife. Like, sit down and eat dinner, turn the TV off, like actually have conversations and stuff, so that the communication's there, so you don't run into those issues and stuff. So
I'll add a kind of like a real life something that, once again, even cops don't really think about this, but I know that the regular civilian world out there certainly doesn't think about this as to how it will impact us. And I had a very close friend of mine. He works for the Orlando Police Department, and he was on the SWAT team in Orlando. And he was one of the people who responded to the Pulse nightclub shooting. And I'm sure most people are familiar with it, but in that shooting, mass shooting, that, if I remember correctly, there was like 49 people murdered and like 53 people that were shot but survived. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we're talking like 100 victims total, but 49 that are dead. Yeah. And obviously we live in a social media age where when something happens, I mean, within seconds, the world knows about it with all the, people posting and texting and whatever. So I'll never forget this story. He goes there and he's a part of the first group, because at this point there's a lot of unknowns. All we know is that mass shooting, a lot of people down, SWAT's going. And I'll never forget, a lot of people, when they have a phone, when they get an incoming phone call,
Oh yeah.
they don't necessarily just have it ring. A lot of people have ringtones. And a lot of people will have a ringtone depending upon who it is that is calling them. Like a certain song plays and they automatically, oh, that's my mom or my dad, whatever. So when that shooting happened at Pulse nightclub, obviously word spread quick about it happening. And a lot of these, friends, relatives, colleagues, whatever, were calling their friends to see, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
So my buddy was telling me he's literally walking through Pulse nightclub, clearing the place, stepping over the top of dead bodies. And all of a sudden, the phone of one of the victims would ring, and it wouldn't be a ring, it would be a song that would play.
Yeah.
And like a month or two after the incident, he and his wife and his 2 kids are driving somewhere, and all of a sudden that song came on the radio.
Yeah.
And just boom,
Triggered. Yeah.
trigger right back to that particular, and like literally to this day, he doesn't feel comfortable listening to that song.
Yeah.
It gets to him. And, there's been lots of studies on this. I've spent a lot of time going to this because, Zack and I do a section on mental health, but, the average person, just average human being, they experience about 3 to 5 traumatic incidents in an entire lifetime. The average cop, depending upon where you work, I mean, obviously some places are busier than others. Zack and I happen to work in 2 of the, busiest, most violent. I mean, we work a rough, busy area. The average cop will experience anywhere between 200 to 800 traumatic events in a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And just think about that impact to you. When you have something happen several hundred times and a normal person only has it happen a couple, I mean, that's going to build up. And, Zack brings up such an important point. And one of the messages that we deliver when we teach and train cops is, best advice we can give you is remember this. Being a cop is what you do. That is not who you are. Mm-hmm. You are a mom. You're a dad. You're a brother. You're a sister. You're an aunt. You're an uncle. You're a friend. You're a neighbor. That's who you really are. Yeah. That's the important part. And if you don't devote enough time to what you really are, it's real easy to get caught up and get lost and have you totally self-identify with, I'm a cop. And I'm not saying don't give 150%. I'm not saying don't have personal pride and give it your all. But if you don't develop some hobbies and some interests and have a life away from the badge and the gun, this job will eat you up and spit you out. Yeah.
No, it's definitely, yes, super true. And we've talked about that. And I mean, I'm a firm believer in all that for sure. And, this is also a good way to do that. So you say one of your classes that you guys teach is on mental health. But you've got this company now. I shut you down over an hour ago about talking about it. But I think now is the time that we really should, let the audience know one of the reasons why you're here in South Florida today, because you don't even live in South Florida anymore. But like what you guys do and what you guys offer, and then where people can find it and stuff.
Sure. So this all came about almost 20 years ago. I had a case, and I was at the medical examiner's office, and one of my best friends happened to be the interim chief medical examiner at the time, and Dr. Trelka. Just amazing man, had a huge influence on my career. And we did the autopsy. We went into his office to have a conversation, and he just turned to me and he said, Rick, I wish everybody did their cases the way that you do yours. That would make my job so much easier. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know kind of where he was coming from. And I didn't think about it like this because I'm in Lauderhill. I'm just in my own little world, my own little section of the county. But as the medical examiner, he deals with all of the agencies. Yeah. So he knows the strengths and the weaknesses and whatever. So we had a conversation. That next day, I had a pretrial conference with one of the prosecutors in homicide here in Broward. So we were getting ready to go to trial on a case. And that prosecutor during the pretrial conference says, Rick, I just wish everybody would do their cases. If they did them the way you did yours, my job would be so much easier. So I asked him, I go, what do you mean by that? Because this is now the second time in 48 hours I've heard this, which was really weird. Mm-hmm. And he goes, a lot of the little things that a lot of detectives just wouldn't have wasted or spent their time on, you know, some crackhead said XYZ, you actually would go talk to them. And you may not probably known it was going to amount to much, but without even knowing it, what you've done is you've taken away a lot of the ammunition from the defense. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Oh, this is such an important case. You want to put my client away for the rest of his life, but you didn't even think it was important enough to go do this.
Yeah.
And even though it was just, you know, a lot of times nonsense, the bottom line is you did it. You documented it that you did it. And it makes my job as the prosecutor a lot easier. Well, anyways, after that back-to-back happened, I sat down with Dr. Trelka and we developed a homicide investigations course. And we said, listen, why can't we get everybody on the same page? Why can't we get everybody to understand? Because the average cop really has no idea what happens to the human body once it dies. Mm-hmm. They just don't. I mean, we get a little bit of training in the academy, but other than that, most cops don't know much of anything about death and everything else. And so we decided to do it. And, you know, we did it for a long time. And as I got closer to retiring, I just decided that I want to be able to provide something to law enforcement officers, prosecutors, medical examiners, office personnel, the military, you know, investigators in the military. And one of the things that comes up is budget. You know, we can't afford to send people. It's too expensive. And there's some places around this country where they don't really have any kind of advanced or specialized training within their own state that's even available. And it's cost prohibitive to send their personnel, you know, with plane tickets and hotels. And so, you know, the first person I reached out to was my good friend Zack. And I said, listen, Zack actually started doing sections of my homicide school with me as a guest speaker, as a subject matter expert on cold case homicide cases, because that's where, you know, he spent a lot of his career. And obviously I saw Zack work, and he's just an amazing instructor, very good at keeping, you know, the audience's attention, and so smart, and just he's just a squared away guy. And I said, that's the guy that I want to be partnered up with when I do this. Mm-hmm. So he and I sat down, and he said, I'm all in, both feet, let's do it. And then we reached out to a couple of other people that we both knew and have worked with for a long time and said, hey, listen, will you join us on this journey? And that ultimately led to a bunch of yeses, which was awesome. And then what we did is we wound up creating a total of 12 advanced and specialized training courses to benefit law enforcement, prosecutors, medical examiners, office personnel, and members of the military, and of all kinds of different subject matters. And we called the company Semper Veritas. Semper, obviously a popular, you know, most people know from the military, you know, Semper Fidelis, always faithful from Marine Corps, and Semper Veritas, you know, always ready for the Coast Guard. And Veritas, you know, always seeking the truth. Mm-hmm. Semper meaning always. And that was one thing that Zack and I have always done for our career is we just want to know what the truth is. Regardless of where it takes us, what's the truth? So we decided that was the perfect name for the company, Semper Veritas. And we spent almost 2 years building it, and we are now down in South Florida for the next 2 weeks to teach 5 different classes over these 2 weeks, and then we head up to Jacksonville for another 2 weeks. And then starting in 2026, we're going to be going through other areas around Florida. We're going around the country. We're going to Ohio. We're going to Oklahoma. And we're going to basically eliminate the excuse of we can't afford it. You hear all these agencies say that, and it's easy words to utter until you have an incident. And until your county or your city has to stroke that check for that multi-million-dollar settlement because of mistakes. Mm-hmm. Zack and I are very, very humble when we teach that, listen, we're not going to step in front of you and tell you that we're God's gift to investigations, that we know how to do everything and we're perfect and we've done everything right, because we haven't. Zack and I, we've made a lot of mistakes. But we've worked in an area of the country that is super busy, so we've done it for a very long time. We've got a lot of experience, and we want to share not just our successes, but our failures as well, and be honest about them, so that everybody's learning curve is so much quicker than ours was. And, we have a wide variety of topics that we talk about and do, and, the subject matter experts that we've brought on board are just incredible. And we're very excited about traveling around, not just Florida, but traveling around the country and giving back to a profession that has given so much to the two of us, because this is what we've done for pretty much our entire adult lives. And, I look back on my career and I've, I got, when I first retired and somebody asked me, like, what's the highlight of your career? It has nothing to do with what I've accomplished as an individual. Nothing. Solving cases or this. It's got nothing to do with that. The thing that I'm the most proud of are all of the people that I have helped to reach their goals. Whether that was getting into a specialized unit, getting promoted, whatever it might. Maybe it was just a phone call at 10 o'clock at night because they're just going through a tough time. And I was just a shoulder to lean on, or a set of ears to listen to you whine, bitch, moan, and complain. Mm-hmm. Helping other people is become the defining important part of my career. And I'm looking forward to continuing to do that.
Good stuff. So Zach's still on the job, so he's going to still see some stuff. How do you stay fresh with all of it? How do you stay prepared for the ever-changing aspects of law enforcement? I know you can watch the news and you can learn maybe a little bit from that, but you're not going to learn much. But how do you stay fresh and stay relevant? Because we've all had those instructors that are pulling up, that are going, okay, guys, this is how you shoot, Weaver stance.
Yep.
This and that. You remember you even had a Weaver in your agency.
Yes.
So how do you stay fresh with it to
it's a
continue
good question
to make yourself relevant in the training world?
Well, thankfully, I haven't been out of the game for that long.
Exactly.
But I'm a firm believer that the more often you do something, the more proficient you become at it, and the less often you do it, it's a perishable skill. Mm-hmm. And the law in of itself is an ever-changing thing.
Yeah.
And when I first came on the job, when we would do investigations, I worked my first death case in 1992. So we're talking a long time ago. Yeah. And the way we did an investigation back then is absolutely nowhere near the way we do investigations now. I would say that probably for every hour of instruction that Zack and I do, there's probably 8 to 12 hours of research, studying, interviewing people, finding out about case law, finding out about case studies, finding out about strategies on prosecution and jury selection. And if we made this decision now, how is this going to impact the case a week from now, a month from now, 10 years from now on appeal, things like that. When you're there at the day of the incident and you're going to the scene and you're conducting that walkthrough, I see whatever. What does that mean? Now that I have that information, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And so it's a never ending learning process. And Zach and I are both very, very proactive. Like I said, we both honestly admit we don't know everything. We haven't seen everything. We haven't done everything. We haven't experienced everything. We've done a lot. We've seen a lot. We've experienced a lot, but we don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I think that when you have the attitude that you're always willing to learn, because the bottom line is especially in this business, you stop learning, you stop living. And we're very proactive. So if I would say that probably, like I said, every hour of teaching we do, behind the scenes, there was probably 8 to 10 hours that was put into that 1 hour of material.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, it's good because that is, I see that as, I was talking on an episode that I recorded last night, like one of the things that I'm looking to get into kind of as a hobby in retirement coming up is shooting sports.
Sure.
So that I'm still receiving, I'll be a 43-year-old man, still receiving the ability to shoot. I'm not just standing on a range and putting stuff into a paper. I'm moving around, I'm shooting, I'm doing that kind of stuff. So I'm still going to try to stay involved in that because I still intend on carrying a firearm and I want to be proficient at it. I want to protect my family. I want to protect the people that I'm around, or if something happens that I need to act, even as a retired law enforcement officer, I'm going to act. And I don't want to be a crusty guy that forgets. So I know that I still have to train in that. So sometimes, like I said before, we may have seen guys that are retired because it's a good thing to do to spread the knowledge that you've gained over 20, 30, sometimes 40 years of a career to the youth, the up and comers. But then sometimes does that stuff stay relevant? You can't rest on your laurels. You can't
Sure.
rest on your accomplishments, because as we learn in law enforcement, they don't mean anything. Yeah. Yesterday, nobody cares about. It's
Yesterday's
what are you doing
hits
right now?
don't win today's ball games.
Yeah.
And nobody cares about how we did it in the 1950s and 1960s.
For sure. Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah, how we did. Well, I didn't wear a vest. I had 6 rounds and I was able to kill him. Now you guys shoot 45 rounds and still can't hit somebody. That kind of stuff. Yeah, awesome. So, what's something that you guys have developed? We don't necessarily have to end, but we can kind of wrap this. What's something like a habit that you had on the job that was something that you did all the time and something that you do? He loves to punt over to you.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
lean back thinking like, oh, I'm going to avoid this one,
Yeah.
and I'll take second at bat.
I'm definitely I'm a quirk kind of guy. I definitely have some weird habits or whatever. Probably when I'm working. All right. Yeah. So to this day, in every single police vehicle I have been assigned, there is, if not directly on the dashboard or directly somewhere, wherever I can see it, there's going to be a small figure of Batman.
Okay.
Batman is a big deal in my house. Batman has been my explanation to my kids about what I do, from when I was in patrol to onward, because he's a guy who's a normal guy who chooses to do this. He has some cool stuff, some cool equipment, some cool gear, and he goes out every day and he fights bad guys. So even 25-something years later, at this moment, there is currently a Batman sitting on my dashboard in my car, and I've always had that. And again, for me, it's a superstition thing without a doubt. I'm ridiculously, dumbly superstitious, but also from the standpoint of when I see that, it reminds me of that fact of 2 things. Number one, there are people at home who think I'm out here doing this.
Yeah.
I need to get back to them. And number 2, he's a guy who made a decision to do something about it. And that's honestly, as long as I do this career, I want to still be that guy. So that would be probably the weird thing.
Who's your favorite Batman?
You know what? I'm going to plead the 5th. I'm not, because then the minute you pick one, you get judged. So I can't.
Come on, let people judge.
I can't, because they all have their different
So then what
They're
about
different strengths except for
So let's talk about
George Clooney.
Let's talk about a verse. Like,
Okay.
do you want a Nolan verse or this new universe that they're in where it's a little more detective-y?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go back to the Tim Burton style?
Okay,
Like, and I will lump that era of
Yeah.
George Clooney into the Tim Burton style
Okay,
of Batman.
so just fully embracing the nerdness of this. I would say different points in my career were different Batman.
Okay.
When I first started, probably more of a Nolan,
Okay.
rough and tumble, just going out there after it. But you have to maintain your sense of humor with the Keaton at the same time. But then I think as I got older and more into the investigative side of my career, then maybe it is more current Batman, where it is more of an investigator, detective comics Batman. So that would probably be my nerdiest answer on that. I don't know.
I like the avoidance yet nerdy
I don't
answer
know
of
that
it.
there's a Clooney era or a Val Kilmer era, but
So you're just
definitely
going to kick the nipples right off of the
yeah,
the answer.
never put nipples on my vest. They're good where they're at. So yeah.
Stay underneath everything,
Yeah.
never out.
Those are mine.
Okay. All right. Very good. Rick, what do you got? What do you got for?
I think mine are so, I guess, normal throughout our profession. I still to this day do all like the things that most cops do. I walk into a restaurant, I have to have my back to the wall facing the door. In the crazy world we live in, I basically, I don't go anywhere without my gun on me at all times. Early on in my career, in the SWAT team, we used to have a saying that it's better to have and not need than need and not have. And, I am going to, if I'm going to go out, I'm going out on my shield. And, I'm going to protect my family. And I think that's probably one of the big mistakes probably that I made in my career early on. I think a lot of cops have made is that, this just took over, a lot of my life, and I did not pay as much attention to the people who really truly love me and care about me 24/7. And made a lot of sacrifices, and the reality of it is, all they really cared about, here I'm going to come home and tell cool stories, and the reality of it is they don't really care about that. All they want to know is, I just want Dad to come home. That's it. And so I've learned a valuable lesson. Like my wife is just absolutely the most incredible person walking on the face of the earth. I mean, she is an angel to put up with me and my career, and somebody who just can't sit still and always has to be doing something.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when I would walk out the door, hey, I'm going to do this, and she has no idea if I'm coming home or not.
Yeah.
And she has 100% of the time always supported me. And just whenever I would say something, she's always just, all right, honey, go do what you got to go do. And never received any kind of pushback. I think that's been what has helped me remain somewhat sane.
Yeah.
Is having a partner in life that always has your back and fully supports you and is understanding, even if she really doesn't understand what you're doing, she understands the importance of supporting you. And so I am beyond lucky and blessed to have a wife and a partner who just is awesome. And I'm super thankful for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, understanding that at least what you're doing is what you love. Cause I know sometimes mine, when things have frustrated me, she's the type that's like, if it frustrates you, she like wants to cut it off. So sometimes I still have to like explain to her why this is still important to me, but it frustrates me, cause she's a throwaway kind of person. Like, so I have to explain that this is important, but I need you to help me work through the frustration so we can focus on what's important and not on the frustration or whatever that.
It's so important you just said that, because that's exactly where I'm at in my life right now, where, I mean, we're fortunate. I mean, I don't need to do anything. You know, my wife's retired. I'm retired. You know, we live a wonderful life. I don't need to do anything. So if I'm going to do something, it has to be something I love. It has to be something I truly enjoy. It has to be something I'm passionate about. And the only thing right now in my life, you know, besides my family, that really makes me get up out of bed and be super motivated to want to go do is helping out the next generation of people entering this tough profession, and getting a chance to do it with a good friend of mine, and we get to work together all the time. It's just an added bonus.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so I'm super glad you brought that up. You know, spend time doing things and hanging around people that are going to be a positive influence on your life. If you have somebody who's a Cancer and all they do is bring stress, drama, aggravation, and confrontation, you got to carve them out.
Yeah.
And I have a super small circle, but everybody who's in my circle contributes to me in a positive way. And sometimes that positive way is telling me something I need to hear that might not be what's going to make me happy, but I need to be told that. And I trust them and love them enough to know that they're doing it for the right reasons. So I'm very fortunate in my life right now that I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing with who I want to be doing it with, and could not be any happier.
Hell yeah.
So
that's good. All right. Well, cool. You know, I mean, we can say it, but I'll throw all the links and stuff for the company so that people can follow up and see. By the time this episode will come out, you guys will probably be in Jacksonville. But you know, I'll throw all that in there. And as they've said, it's important to continue, you know, learning. It's, you know, if your department can't do it, go out and do it on your own. You know, get the training, you know, figure out your schedule so that you can travel or get to it, or find something. There's someone around, that you can get to, at least within a decent drive. I've driven to Jupiter for an entire week during my birthday during my birthday week to do a training, just because it was in Jupiter. So I was like, whatever, which for me is just over an hour away. So it's important to get that training so that you're constantly you're knowledgeable. What you learn in the academy is not everything. What your red shirts in the police department teach you is not everything. They haven't done everything. They can't. You can go out there and find it, whether it be tactics, whether it be you know, courtroom presentation, investigations, mental health. It's important to get all this stuff. Keep looking for it. You can find them at the right price. You can find them at good prices. Sometimes you can communicate to the people, you know, these guys that run it, and get coupon codes or extra help, or find a sponsor.
If I could just say one thing, Justin, and this message is really just for any police department, any sheriff's office, not just here in the state of Florida. I mean, we've got a lot of places in Florida that we hit on a regular basis, but even throughout the country. If you have, you know, your personnel that you want to have them get trained in specific areas or whatever, please reach out to us, because, you know, when Zack and I and our team shows up, we don't just do death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Everybody hates that. We're going to come in, we're going to teach you stuff that you can immediately apply, like immediately. The next day, if you get called out that night, you're immediately applying the stuff that we're talking to you about. And when we're teaching stuff that's going on right now in 2025 in modern day policing, with investigations, with the technology, with the stuff that's available. We kind of cut through the chase as to what's real life, what's television BS.
Yeah.
And we make sure that our students in our classes, they don't just learn, but they have a really good time. And there's a lot of interaction, a lot of dialogue, a lot of back and forth. And I'll be real honest with you. You know, when Zack and I travel around, we learn just as much as the students that are in our classes with us.
For sure.
From feedback that we get from them, or, hey, you know, we tried this and that worked. And we're like, oh man, I never thought of it. That's awesome. The next stop that we go to, we bring that up. And of course, we give credit to whoever it was who had mentioned it to us. But yeah, it's the big difference with the way we do things is we are extremely authentic, extremely sincere, scenario-based, real-life stuff. I mean, we're bringing you into crime scenes through videos and photos and of real-life stuff that we've actually done and cases we've actually worked, because thankfully we've got a lot of them to pick from. And so if even if you're not in the state of Florida, send us an email. Go to our website, svpolicetraining.com, send us an email, and we'll reach out to you and we'll set something up, and we'll be more than happy to come to your geographic area and set up a couple weeks of training. And it'll save you the expenses of airfare and hotels and everything. And I can promise you that your personnel will not only have a good time, but they will learn a lot, and it will be time well spent. You're going to get a good return on your investment.
Oh yeah. All right, awesome, boys. Well, thank you very much. This was cool, fun, and somewhat of a trip down memory lane, somewhat too.
Yes, it was.
I appreciate it. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks, Justin.
Calling all units. Calling all units. Donut shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.